Let me first introduce myself. My name is Matjaz Pogacnik. I'm coming from Slovenia. I'm director of fixed access network in Telekom Slovenije, where I'm working for 13 years. Started as a head of VDSL project, then WiMAX, then FTTH deployment. And currently I'm directly responsible for fixed access network, for transport networks, also for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and also for real estate management. Mark asked me to share something private with you, what I do in private time. I was pretty much engaged in caving. Actually, for a number of years I was president of largest NGO, non-government organization, which is Caving Society in Slovenia. We were highly and still are active in environment protection field, and this is also one of the reasons why I'm responsible for energy management in Telekom Slovenia. And last year we achieved to decrease energy consumption by 3%, which is, after a long time, we started decreasing the energy consumption. So, a couple of words about the company I'm working in. Telekom Slovenia is incumbent operator in Slovenia, but actually it's a group of operators. So, we also have operations in other countries where we are present as alternative operators. So, I dare say we know the problematics from the incumbent point of view and also the frustration of alternative operators towards incumbents in other republics, in our case as well. So Telekom Slovenia is 64% state-owned company. Just a short introduction of Slovenia. I'm sure you're aware of these facts, but nevertheless, it's a fairly small country, so 20,000 square kilometers, 2 million population, so you can easily compare it with Kent, which we saw before. 6,030 settlements, only 2 cities larger than Nevers. So it's easier to understand that we are a rural country, only 16 cities over 10,000 inhabitants. We have 830,000 households, and current penetration of broadband is 65%, if we measure it by 1 meg. And what struck me when we saw the slides about Kent, we have 7 times more central offices than Kent has. So I dare say that our infrastructure, telecommunication infrastructure, is much better than in Kent. We had lots of activities in FTTH, and currently this is on European level. We are on the 5th position regarding FTTH penetration. Of course, in relative terms, because we are a small country, in absolute terms we cannot be 5th, never. If you can go proceed. So in 2004, one alternative operator called T2 started building FTTH aggressively all over the country, cherry picking basically. So they covered with FTTH in a couple of years more or less all of bigger towns and cities. We followed 2 years later, so currently we cover approximately 15% of households, and our competitor covers approximately 30% of households. So our current broadband market share is 41%, and we are the only operator in Slovenia which has bitstream access and unbundled local loops in copper and fiber networks in Slovenia, regardless of the fact that our FTTH network is half the size of our competitor. And currently, what makes us also interesting, there are 138 telecommunications operators operating in Slovenia, in 2 million market. And I dare say that more or less everybody, including us, has financial difficulties. It's just became overcrowded. Next slide, please. Okay, we all know the goals of digital agenda. I will not read them. Can you proceed, please? So what we did in last half of year is we examined the digital agenda goals and what our role in achieving these goals is. We performed a feasibility analysis, as we do for most of our projects, and we started with what do we have today. So this is Slovenia divided per settlements, and the green, so this is like traffic light. The green is where you can reach the 30 megabits goal, and the red is where you cannot reach. So what we hope for 2020 is that that I will show the same slide being totally green. And currently this is not the case, and this is for the goal of 100 megabits per second, and of course it's not green as well. So what we believe is that we have two goals for digital agenda, and the second goal, so having 50% of households using at least 100 megabits per second is likely to be achieved without any state intervention, because 48% of our population live in urban areas, where we have currently 4 to 5 competing infrastructures. So we, the network operators, the telecommunications operator, will be fighting to achieve this goal. On the other hand, we have huge geographical areas of rural areas, and 30 megabits connection for all households is a huge challenge, and we believe that it cannot be achieved without some sort of state intervention. And this is a major challenge, not only for us, it's for the whole country. Okay, so I will be focusing on rural and suburban areas on the following slides. So we have 52% of households in urban and suburban areas, in rural and suburban areas, and 62% of them currently cannot get 30 megabits per second. This is the result of our feasibility study, where we took into account our networks and open access networks which have been built in the previous 5 years in Slovenia. So how has Slovenia been solving this digital divide problem in the past? So the state started tenders in 2007. The first in 2007, the second in 2011. Can you proceed? So altogether 82 million euros have been invested in 29,000 connections are planned to be built. Not all of them have been built yet, so in 5 years. Currently I think approximately 8,000 connections are in use. What has proved to be very good is that the state was very proactive and efficient in allocating the areas where we, the operators, would never invest our money, because it just does not bring the financial result. What has not been so good is that only local problematics have been solved. So now we have a number of small networks which are not connecting. Each of them has different technical solution. Each of them has different ICT systems behind. More or less, we are talking about Excel spreadsheets. They don't have clear obligations regarding service quality, response time, access to the network. So in some cases, we perform there as service operator. We are waiting for 260 days to get a connection. In our case, Telekom Slovenia has to provide it for alternative operators in 6 days, otherwise we pay penalty. So this is clearly not the best practice. What has been good is that majority of these networks are fiber networks, so the investment is future-proof. But it's a bit of our problem that these are all parallel networks to our network. So what we see today is that the majority of users are going with broadband services to new built networks, and they are staying with TDM, with voice services in our networks. So we are now splitting the customers 50-50, and we cannot, and we have the whole cost of the network to support, and it's not a good business case. And some of companies which are now maintaining these networks already approached us with proposal that we buy these networks. Of course, it's fancy, it's nice to build the networks, it's nice designing the networks, but operating and maintaining the networks, facing the angry customers, this is not always nice. Okay, so as a next step of our feasibility study, we performed the analysis of technical possibilities. I will not go through all of them. We have we are using most of these technologies, some of them in Slovenia, some of them in other countries, so we have live experience with all of those. So just briefly, fiber to the home is the best. Fiber to the node or fiber to the curtain with combination of VDSL2 is also good to achieve both 30 megabits and 100 megabits goals. Cable systems are good, but it depends on the topology of the network and the technology which you put on the network. And LTE is okay, but not for everybody. So I will be speaking about LTE here only in terms of providing fixed access for known customers, so not for mobile access. But nevertheless, if you will have technical questions, I'm an engineer, so you might just shoot at me. I can explain each technology per se, what is good and what is bad. So what we performed is feasibility study then based on possibility of access at all levels, how to provide equal treatment for all players, and we also took into account cost of broadband connection. So our conclusion is that there is not one technology that can suit all the situations. So if you're looking for the cost side of the game, then definitely combination of technologies is the best. And what we also see is that because of the size of Slovenia, if you split the project on many number of small projects, then you cannot reach enough customers to have a good business case. So in our case, the best way to go is to have either national, either some sort of regional level of project. You can go on. Okay, so just to point out the main good points of the three proposed technologies. So fiber to the node would be the best possible way if you are talking about 1 meg or 2 megabits per second. If you are talking about 30 megabits per second, then the distance, the copper distance from central office or from the cabinet to the end customer is a bottleneck. So we were looking at the 1 kilometer radius from the new built fiber to the node cabinet. Fiber to the home, I suppose we all can agree that fiber to the home is the best possible solution. The only problem is money. If we have enough money, then let's go for it, definitely. LTE, we were looking at open base station principles. So as part of our proposed project is that we would build approximately 230 new base stations which would be open to all operators and which could enable 30 megabits per second to limited number of customers. What is much better seen on this picture, this is the picture from our GIS system. So the blue lines are our actual today's infrastructure. These are our central offices. From our existing central offices, we can cover with VDSL2 number of customers with 30 or 100 megabits per second. These are new projected fiber to the node, fiber to the curb locations, where we took at least 20 customers within 1 kilometer radius. The red dots are the projected FTTH customers, and we took into account that they may not be too far from existing infrastructure, otherwise the cost is too high. And then we have customers which are just too far from everything, and those customers we can cover with LTE, with fixed LTE. So this combination leads to 1,800 euros per one connection, which altogether adds to 470 million euros to have this goal of 30 megabits for everybody in Slovenia. Now, if we compare apples to apples with the previous open access network projects, where 4,200 euros were invested, this is private plus public funds, we can see that if we continue with the projects as they were, then we would need more than 1 billion euros. So with reusing of existing infrastructure and upgrading of Telekom Slovenia network, we can provide for the same money much higher number of connections, or we can decrease the cost for at least 50%. Okay, so why do we go with such approach, with proactive approach, that we propose the solution for the state? Because we believe that the way of reusing our infrastructure is much faster and much more cost efficient than building the parallel networks. We can provide solution on the state level. We can still keep the best practice from previous standards, which means that still we believe that state should be responsible for distribution of funds and setting priorities where these funds should be spent first, so which regions or which areas are the most underdeveloped and would profit the most from better broadband infrastructure. We could also eliminate what we see today problems of current open access networks, and of course we can provide it with lower investment. As the last part of our feasibility study, we performed financial analysis. So our first question was, does it make sense to build it with only our funds, with Telekom Slovenia funds? And we saw that within 50 years we don't get return on investment. So I dare say that nobody will build the network in the rural areas with their own, only with their own funds. And so what we believe is that partial financing with public funds is necessary, and we heard Ms. Pascal that already about the possibilities. So just to conclude, Slovenia is small and rural country. The majority of households are still connected via our network, our copper network in the rural areas. And I will just skip this if you go to the last slide. And I believe this is a big challenge for Slovenia, and if we want to keep the cost down, that we need to put optimal combination of technologies in place to provide these goals. And if we want to make it fast, and if we want to make it efficient, because of our size, the national approach or at least regional approach is necessary. Thank you.